Welcome back in. Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. Big news as we started the show today, a ceasefire between the Israeli government and Hamas and or those running things in Gaza. I was just in Israel last month. I got to spend a lot of time with one of the friends of the show, Yael Eckstein, who runs the IFCJ, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. We've been trying to contextualize what exactly is in this deal. I know it's still in the early moments of this being a public deal, but Yael, as a citizen of Israel, what should our audience know about this deal from your perspective and that of other Israelis?
Well, thank you so much, Clay and Buck. And firstly, thank you for all your prayers that brought us to this day. Every Israeli is right now holding their breath until we see those hostages walk over the border, re-enter Israel, and hug their families. It's a very difficult deal because we are releasing hundreds of terrorists for one innocent civilian who was kidnapped from their bed, allowing them to go home. And we know that those terrorists who are in Israeli jails, when they're released, go on to, again, commit terror acts and kill more Israelis. Even Yahya Sinwar, the terrorist mastermind of October 7th, he was in an Israeli jail. He was released in a deal, and he went on to do October 7th. So it's very, very difficult for the Israeli people to have to pay this very difficult price. But every life is sacred. And every day that these hostages are in Gaza being abused and raped, many of them murdered already, is another day in hell that we need to save them from. And so what we know about this deal so far is in the first stage, there'll be 33 hostages released, not all at once, over a period of a few weeks. And the Israeli troops simultaneously will be pulling out of parts of the Gaza Strip. Now, we don't know if these 33 hostages that will be released in the first stage are alive or not. None of them have been confirmed dead, but they haven't been confirmed alive either. So we're waiting with bated breath to see who's going to come home, when, and what's their physical, emotional, spiritual health.
Yael, can you speak to also whether this is a likely to be a temporary ceasefire? What will this mean for Israeli military operations in Gaza and against Hamas more broadly?
That's a great question. That's a question everyone is asking themselves, and we're getting lots of different answers. We saw President Biden say, this is the end of war. This marks the end of the war. We saw President Trump say, we will not allow Hamas to rearm. We will not allow Hamas to be a terror organization that regroups on Israel's border. And we saw Benjamin Netanyahu say, this does not stop our ability to combat terror in the Gaza Strip against Hamas. So it's not clear. None of those details are exactly clear. And I think what we do know is Israelis, as you were there, and you saw prayer for peace and are willing to take very hard steps in order to get to peace. But you can't make peace with a terror organization. So the question is, will Hamas rearm or will they disarm? What will be the ruling factor in the Gaza Strip? Will there be a new leadership for the Palestinian people in Gaza that will bring a new reality of hope and prosperity and education to the Palestinian people instead of what Hamas has been doing of a reign of terror?
Yael, you obviously, as an Israeli, have been following this very, very closely. I was over there last month, and the election of Donald Trump seems to have been a galvanizing factor in accelerating the pursuit of peace in some way. Is that an accurate take from your perspective? What has the election of Trump meant from an Israeli perspective to the pursuit of peace in your country?
Well, first of all, I think that really we have to give credit to all the parties right now who are part of these negotiations, including President-elect Trump and, of course, President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It seems like everyone was really working in coordination to bring this deal to fruition. What's unique about President Trump is that he came in very clearly differentiating between America's ally of Israel, that's a democracy and cherishes freedom and values life, versus Hamas, that is a terror organization. He distinguished very clearly between hostages who are taken from their bed and terrorists who are being held in Israeli prisons. I think just that moral clarity gives room for the possibility of a deal that we saw come to fruition.
What are some of the hopes? We're speaking to Yael Eckstein of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. We're honored to partner with them as a sponsor here on the show. Yael, what are some of the possible hopeful things in the future with this new Trump administration? Donald Trump, obviously, a great ally of the Israeli people. The Abraham Accords at the end of Trump's first term was a bright spot of diplomacy for the U.S., for the region, for the Middle East, for Israel. Are there things that are on the horizon that are giving the Israeli people particular hope now that Donald Trump is coming into his second term?
Wow, I think you said it. Those are two words that give so much hope to the Israeli people and should be a source of hope and pride for the American people as well. The Abraham Accords. Those are accords that in Donald Trump's previous term that he forged between Israel and moderate Muslim countries, and they have sustained the most difficult year and a half. And we see these relations between Tehran and the UAE, even Morocco, that they are not only have they been able to sustain this very difficult time, but in many ways they've even gotten stronger. The idea behind the Abraham Accords is that Iran is a terror state, their government is, not the people, that are funding terror across the Middle East. And that's not good for the moderate Muslim countries, just like it's not good for Israel or America. And so these partnerships, the Abraham Accords that are strategic and good for both sides, have so much possibility to expand. And what we're all looking at is, will it expand to Saudi Arabia? And I think it's a real possibility.
That would be incredibly important. Also important is people being able to come to Israel because so many people in the country rely on people coming from other parts of the world, particularly the United States. When we flew in, Yael, it's just right now, El Al, a ceasefire. How quickly, if the ceasefire is able to be sustained, do you think people would be able to travel on traditional American Airlines, Delta, all of these other places that have stopped allowing their aircraft to move into Israel?
That's a great question. I would hope it would be very soon. And it's so important to have that Christian voice, boots on the ground, the American voice, boots on the ground in Israel, both for the experience of walking those holy footsteps of your spiritual land, Jerusalem, of all three great faiths of Judaism, Christianity, and also Islam, of course, and to visit those Christian holy sites like Bethlehem and the Mount of Olives and the Garden of Gethsemane. It's so important for the Christian experience to be able to walk those footsteps. And like you said, in a way, it's even more important for the Israelis to be able to see we have friends. We're not alone, that Christians come to Israel and that Americans come to Israel to see the sites and to stand with the Israeli people is something that you can't put any price tag on. It inspires us more than anything in the world. So I hope that they will be able to come and visit soon with the airlines, El Al and others. And in the meanwhile, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is on the ground through soup kitchens and food boxes, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, sheltering the poor, letting the Israelis know that very, very important message. You're not alone. The American people stand with you.
Yael, thank you so much for calling in today and also just for the partnership with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Honored to be working with you for this noble cause. Thank you so much.
Clay and Beth, you guys are amazing. Thank you for everything. God bless you.
Thanks to Yael Eckstein. And supportifcj.org is her organization, and I saw firsthand the incredible work they do in Israel. Obviously, breaking news, start of today's show.